Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be doing a review and install of the front XJ frame stiffeners from Barnes 4-wheel drive. If you're new here, welcome to the channel, and don't forget to subscribe. So in order to actually get started on installing our frame stiffeners, you're going to want to make sure that you park on a level surface. My driveway is about as level as it gets. It's even more level than the floor in my garage. After you're all parked and set up, you're going to want to remove your front bumper, which in my case, I'm going to have to remove my winch as well, so that's going to add to my frustration. Following that, we're going to remove the front springs, the shocks, the track bar bracket, remove the front fender brace. That's that little A-frame piece in the front that goes between your frame and the fender. And also, we're going to remove our steering box bolts. Now, in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and completely remove my front axle because I have other work planned for the axle while it is removed. So how's it going over there? Peachy. Good. So for the center section, I went with Affordable Off-Road. And now, honestly, after ordering these front frame stiffeners, I regret not going with Barnes from the beginning. They're priced comparatively, but I think they would have been a lot easier to install, especially given the frame damage that I had on my Jeep. Now, the biggest reason why I did not go with Barnes in the beginning is when I was researching it, I noticed that their center frame stiffeners did not cover that portion where the lower control arm mount used to be. Now, I have long arms on my Jeep. I cut them off. I needed that frame section right there stiffened. It wasn't until I ordered the front section that I realized why it isn't included on their center section. It's because it's included on their front section, which means no bending, no extra cutting. It all fits perfect. It's designed that way. I had to bend and make fit that section that covers where my lower control arms used to mount. These front stiffeners have that portion on it, which means unfortunately I'm going to have to cut mine off because I've already welded plate to it, and I should have just went with Barnes from the beginning. Now, another thing that I like about the kit from Barnes is it doesn't come all in one long section. It comes in pieces, which you might not think is a big deal, but honestly, when you're trying to line everything up, it being in pieces makes things so much easier. You're already welding on it, so what does it matter if you got to do just a little bit more welding? Because it comes in multiple pieces. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let the other me finish taking the rest of this apart, and then we will move on to the next step, getting these marked where they need to go, and getting everything ground down. So now that everything's removed from the frame here, what we need to do is set all our pieces up here and mark out where we're going to weld. That way we can remove all the paint and undercoating to bare metal wherever we need to weld. Now, if you watch my video on installing the center frame stiffeners, it's going to be a lot of repeat information, but this is going to be specific to the kit from Barnes 4-wheel drive. So according to the instructions from Barnes, you want to start from the forwardmost piece and work your way back. Now, the front piece does come with all the holes that you need for your steering box as well as your bumper. So all you got to do is line this up along with those holes and then go ahead and mark everything out. After it's marked out, it's really easy just to set the next pieces up there and move on towards the back. Now, with my final piece here, this is where it gets complicated for me. According to Barnes instructions, if you removed your lower control arm brackets, you can go ahead and leave this the way it sits. If you currently have your lower control arm brackets and plan on keeping them, you can cut this off right at where those brackets start. Problem is, my center section comes up past where my lower control arm brackets used to be. So I got to try to figure out roughly on here where I need to make my cut so that it mates up nicely with the frame stiffeners that I already have installed. I don't think I need to cut there, and I can cut there. And I need to cut somewhere in there. And then just continue that across. Not gonna lie, I feel like I trimmed off too much over here in this corner because I do have a large gap there, but that is perfectly fine. I will accept it. So I got a new marker here, and we will use this to mark because that other one sucked. So I'm all marked up. All I need to do is repeat this process on the other side. Then what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to use my big wire wheel as well as a flat disc on my Harbor Freight grinder. You want to be extra careful with this because you don't want to take away any of the metal that's there. You just want to take everything down to bare metal and get all this knocked down where it needs to be knocked down to bare metal, and we'll get it all set back up in here. So for the backside of all your steel, it's a really good idea to go ahead and prime it because you're going to be closing that out, and you want to do everything you can to prevent corrosion, which is a major problem on the frames of these Jeeps. So go ahead and grab your favorite primer, prime the contact side of all your plates before you start welding things on. Me personally, I use Rust-Oleum for just about everything, with the exception of when I painted my Jeep, I used a different brand paint. I believe it's Magic, just some tractor paint is what it was. So I've got the inside of all my pieces primered, as well as I am down to bare metal wherever I'm going to be welding. Now, one thing I'm going to do different than what I did on the center portion is I'm not actually going to primer the frame before I put my pieces up there. And the reason for this is, if I prime it, then I got to clean up the same areas again and get it all down to bare metal so that I can weld right there. Now on the center portion, I did have quite a bit of underbody coating that I had to scrape away. There was some frame damage from where this had actually been crashed in the past, so it was just better that I clean the entire frame and then go ahead and primer it, get everything set up, and weld it on. Now on the front here, I'm just not too worried about it. I'm just going to go ahead and weld my pieces on and then coat everything on the outside. Now I did find lining these up just a little bit challenging, but I think I figured something out that is going to work just fine. Now according to the instructions from Barnes, it talks about starting in the front, lining everything up, and then working your way back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the front and then start on the back and kind of piece my pieces together in the middle. The reason for this is when I lined it all up, I felt like everything was pushed a little bit forward, and I tried to evenly space it all out, and it just made things a little difficult. So what I'm actually going to do, the frame has holes for the steering box on the left and right hand side. Doesn't matter if you're right hand drive or left hand drive, the holes will be there on both sides. Now when I installed my bumper, I had some bumper tie-in brackets that I had to install as well, and they used the bolt holes that are already there in the frame. So I'm just going to go ahead and line everything up based off of those bolt locations and go ahead and align it with the bolts and go ahead and tack it in place, and that'll be where that is going to sit. Now towards the back here, what I thought about doing is going ahead and setting this in place, just kind of feeling for where it fits tightest up against the frame, and then I'm going to secure it and tighten it with the bolt for my brake lines. And then I'll just go ahead and tack this in place, and then align the two pieces that go in the middle and kind of evenly space them the best that I can and slap them all in there and burn it all in. Now for my two center pieces, what I'm actually going to do is when you set these up here, they don't quite sit flat. So on this forward one, here, I'm going to go ahead and kind of tack it in place and get a C-clamp over here and smash it into place where it needs to be, and that'll help round everything, I hope, unless it pulls the metal. You know what, I'm rethinking this. No, I'm not. We're good. So I'm actually going to start welding here, and then I'm going to use a C-clamp to go ahead and fold this the rest of the way on in, as well as my other piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and get it tacked in place and take a C-clamp and fold it the rest of the way in. So I decided to pack up last night after I got everything kind of tacked in place, but now all that's left is to go ahead and burn everything all the way in. Now according to the instructions from Barnes 4-wheel drive, all the semi-vertical slots, they say, are designed to be welded uphill. We'll see how that works out. I'm not really good at welding uphill. I always have lots of problems, but we will see. So I'm going to go ahead and finish getting all of this welded in.
Now, it's not absolutely necessary to weld every inch of these. You can weld an inch, skip an inch, weld an inch, skip an inch, and just kind of stagger all your welds. That will help you keep things from getting too hot, as well as it'll keep your puddle from growing too big and falling, and you'll create a lot of slag and problems and things like that. So if you just weld an inch at a time, it'll keep things nice and clean and should work out just fine.
So unfortunately, I'm having a hard time finding a long enough break in the wind to finish up my welding today. But that's okay, I'm not going to bore you guys with any more welding. Once I'm all welded on, I'm going to go ahead and follow it up with some Rust-Oleum primer. You don't have to use Rust-Oleum. Me personally, I just like Rust-Oleum the best. And then I'm going to go ahead and follow it up with some Rust-Oleum underbody coating. As far as my thoughts on the Barnes four-wheel drive frame stiffeners, honestly, I wish that I would have just went with them from the beginning for my center section as well. It's a lot easier to work with. I like how it kind of came in pieces instead of one long piece that I had to try to force in place. It was just multiple pieces that you can kind of set along the frame, and you don't have to worry as much about trying to force everything into place. You set it up there, you weld one on, you set the next one up, and it's mostly wherever there is a bend, you're actually going to get a new piece instead of having to bend your piece around. Now, there was a section that I did have to bend, but it wasn't that big a deal. It was easy to do, and I didn't have to try to hold everything up all at the same time. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I know it's kind of quick, but if you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. As always, don't forget to subscribe. You can check me out on Instagram at It's Project Venture, as well as the Tickety Talk at It's Project Venture. Thanks for watching.